shoot. Yeah.
This is From the Big House to the Penthouse podcast. Stories of addiction and recovery. The lie is dead. We do recover.
Yeah.
That's Ricky playing.
Yeah, on the guitar. On the guitar.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of From the Big House to the Penthouse, Stories of Addiction and Recovery. As always, your host is Ricky Cruz.
Oh, what's going on? And my co-host Raul Moreno. What's going on, Raul?
Man, I can't. I don't got no complaints.
You were gonna say I can't complain, but you were gonna complain.
I was. Yeah.
What's up, huh?
Yeah, how was your weekend?
Man, what did I do this? You know what? I actually this weekend, Saturday, man, I had lunch with my pastor. And I think I didn't call him, Howard Agnew from New Hope Church, Alvin. I used to not call him my pastor, but I'm calling him my pastor now, man, because I'm getting kind of connected with the church, man. I don't know if I told you or if I told you, Jay, that I'm getting a little bit more connected with the church. Actually, something happened, man. It was not a miracle. It was like a spiritual awakening, I think, that they call it in my program of Narcotics Anonymous, right? I went, Howard invited me to a car show, right? And we took, I hate to use up a lot of our time in the beginning, the opening stages of this, right? But we knew about this car show coming up Saturday night. We washed our cars. Howard came over. We washed them, waxed them, and everything here at the shop Saturday night, right? And prepared the cars for the car show at the church Sunday. And so we had 3 cars in mind we were going to take. And we get here Sunday. He goes home, I go home, we all go home. And the next morning we come to get the cars, man. One car, Lisa's car that I just bought her, the 66. It started flooding out. The carburetor is just pouring gas out, man. And I'm like, oh, man. And then she almost hits the side of the building with it when she's pulling it out. And I'm like, okay, man, this isn't going to happen. So we pull that car in. She has 2 Mustangs, a 66 and a 65. So yeah, exactly. So we pull that one in, man. And then we pull the other one out. And that one's not as nice as the other one. And it's got points. If you know what points distributor is, so it has points. But that son of a gun's running like a champ, man. It's running like a sewing machine. I said, you know what? We'll take this and then we'll take my Chevelle. Well, halfway on the way up there, man, we get it. We wrap it up, close the shop, and we're heading out. My Chevelle loses 3rd gear, man, halfway to Alvin. And I run it in 2nd gear, man, all the way to Alvin. I didn't turn back. It was okay because we took it slow. We just cruised, so it wasn't too bad. But that's what the story I wanted to say, man, is so we get there and, we go to service and everything. And I come out and we have the car show. And it was cool, man, a lot of cars and everything. And before you know it, Howard calls me on my cell phone. I was like, hey, what's up? He goes, hey, man, can you come over here real quick? I'm saying, well, where are you at? So I find him and I go over there and there's some dude crying. There's some dude crying, man. And you could tell that he's on something. I'm like, what's going on here? He goes, hey, man, let's pray over this guy. Let's pray with him. And I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. So I put this picture on my Facebook page today. Yeah, man. So we prayed and he prayed and he talked and we held and then I said, hey man, so what do you want to do, man? You want to get clean? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, so you want to talk? Let's take a walk around the parking lot. Let's talk. And we did, man. So Howard kind of gave us I lost track of Howard. He went somewhere and then me and this guy went walking. Well, dealing with and I'm going to introduce our special guest, but dealing with active addicts. We call them active addicts because he had used. He was actually under the influence, right? And I was waiting for him to ask for money, right? Because that's what we do. That's what I did. Yeah. That's what we do. It's like, hey, I need $20. You know what I mean? And I'm looking for Jesus and give me $20, right?
Okay. Yeah.
He's at a church, but dude, that never happened. And you know what, man? So I don't want to use up a bunch of this time. I'm going to come back to that story in a minute because it was going to be part of what I wanted to talk about, but I'm just setting the tone on it. I think I had a spiritual experience, man, this weekend, I think. So I'm still working on that part. But listen, man, what would happen in your weekend?
Man, Friday was the 40th day of my son's passing. So we we had balloon release and
Mhm.
lantern release.
Mhm.
You know, we had the family
I
get
remember you said
together,
that,
and
man.
then
Yeah.
some of his friends, and we got to just
Just chill.
chill, share stories, and relax.
Good. Good.
You know, and that was good. It was.
Mhm.
I think it was good for everybody
Mhm.
to be able to experience that and see that, not just in the family, but his friends as well.
Right.
And then Saturday, man, I'm a UFC head, man. So it was some great fights on the UFC.
Circuit. Yeah.
Yeah, so I watched that on Saturday,
All
and
right.
then Sunday I sat back and stared at my phone all day waiting for you to call me.
Oh
but
yeah.
it just
I was
never
recovering.
happened, dude.
That was Sunday. Well, that was getting that spiritual experience,
Okay.
man. I was in the middle of that.
Well, now that you said that,
so you give me excuse. Yeah. Well, listen, man. Without further delaying this, man, I want to introduce to the audience my friend Jay, man. Jay has been in law enforcement for 20-something years. How many years?
24
Jay?
and a half
24 and a
years.
half. So what I want to do is with the applause from the Chingadera, I want to welcome Jay, man, to the show. All right, Jay, man. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Introduce yourself to our audience, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. Ricky called me last week and said, "Hey, would you mind coming over and having a conversation with us about kind of my purview of the narcotics world from the other side?"
Right.
And I've been following you on Facebook
Mhm.
and watching and trying to be an encouraging word too, because I think the work that you're doing is phenomenal.
Thanks, man. When
I
you
really
know,
do.
and I'm going to tell you, Jay, that you caught my attention back when we were doing work for Richard, right here, and fabulous guy, man. You know, a mutual friend of ours that I met you through him.
Mhm.
We were doing that fundraiser here, man, and when you were when we were talking at the time, I was like, man, this guy actually cares. You know what I mean? And we have that stigma. Is it a stigma, the word that we say about police officers and people in the that are in law enforcement that they're considered that when I was on the other side of breaking the law, right? We think that, oh man, it's just we don't want to be around police officers because of the trouble that we get in when we break the law. It just sucks, right? We want to break the law and not get in trouble, right?
You forget that they're human, to be honest with you.
We do. We forget that they're human, man. It's just like we forget that you guys actually are human. You're not a robot, man. You have families, you have brothers, sisters, mothers and fathers and stuff like that. And we forget that sometimes, man, being on that other side, and all you're doing is your job. And what I really liked about Jay, what interested me, man, that it was more than just a job for him. He actually, I feel like there's some passion there about some people, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to invite him into the show, man. Actually, we talked about this months ago. It was longer than that. Yeah, no, he's been on my radar, man, for a while, and he got away from me for a little bit. And he got busy, and then I got busy, and then I said, "Hey, man, this time let's get Jay on here." So yeah, that's how we met, man. And I'm sorry to take over the thing you were telling us about you and
tell us about yourself, man.
Yeah,
tell us about your
yourself.
upbringing a little bit. Tell us about Jay.
Yeah, so I appreciate you guys having me, and it's something I've been following Ricky on for a long time now, since we met back in the campaign days. And listening to you, listening to Tom Locke, we had some great conversation out here, and you pick up on those pieces of passion where you see somebody that actually cares about other folks, regardless of the job, right? And we actually had a conversation back then, because that's when you were talking about getting into doing this.
Right.
So my background's about 24 and a half years, give or take some months there, in some form or fashion with law enforcement inside Brazoria County. I've worked with all the big houses, DEA, stay away from FBI, but DEA, ATF's a great group of folks right out of here in Houston. Big support mechanism for small agencies and stuff like that. So we established some relationships and did a lot of cases over the years. We talked earlier, kind of what drove me to come over and have a conversation with you guys too, is I was telling you about my friend down in Freeport that runs a church over there and helps a lot of people out. And so I've watched that happen over the years. I watched what Ricky does.
So what is it? Can we say what the HITO's organization is, in case some of our listeners happen to find themselves in that area and can find some help?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ernie Hutchins, Pastor Hutchins, I grew up with, and he was a wild child, just like most of us from Southern Brazoria County. And and I don't know how many.
And there's a lot of y'all heard.
I don't know how many years ago, but it's probably been 15 years at this point, where he got up one day and had that same epiphany. So
Really?
I'm not living like that anymore. And he traveled for a while
Mhm.
and learned everything he needed to learn, even internationally, and started this church down there. And his biggest purpose, I'll say it that way, is to take folks that want to recover and they put them in the program. The courts send them people at
Mhm.
this point, and he's helped a lot of folks. And one of them recently, I'll tell you guys about, without mentioning the guy's name. And we did a case in Southern Missouri County where some folks went to jail for some non-narcotic stuff. And this guy was involved, and you could tell he'd been strung out
Mhm.
for a period of time and was really, really scraping the bottom at this point, living in his truck or his buddy's truck or something like that. And so we reached out to the Freedom House over there and said, look, we've got some Class C charges. We don't have to put him into these other significant parts and pieces. And but we'd like you to come get him and give him some help. And so the next morning, about 7:30 in the morning, we stood all in the lobby right there with this guy, just really emotional time because someone tried to help him. And I haven't talked to either one of them guys in some time now, but typically you'll get a little bit of feedback. And so I owe some phone calls over there to find out, what the status is. And I really do hope that the guys, that was the bottom for him, right? So he's on his way back up at this point.
So and that's what I'm talking about, Jay, man. That's what I saw in you, man. Is that you do care, man. It's not just about throwing the book at somebody. It's about giving somebody else a chance. And you saw that in that person, man. You saw the struggle, and then you saw that that even though with that charge wasn't bad enough to go ahead and, hey, you know what? Let's see where this line is, man. And so maybe we can fit this guy in here, and maybe he can get it. You know what I mean? I completely sometimes, man, with some of the things that some people do, even some of the things that I've done, I'm like, yeah, I deserve to go to jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, man, some charges, if you can help someone, man, in a day instead of just sitting in jail, man, not doing nothing, maybe get some help in another way, man. If that is awesome, man. That is amazing. Yeah.
That,
And a lot of times
Yeah.
law enforcement really don't have that discretion, right?
Really?
There's some lines that you got to stay in.
Right.
And but when you have the opportunity, you absolutely want to run down that road and do all you can with them, especially guys that are sitting in your office and just, I can't go home. My family don't want me there anymore. This is it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an opportunity to help. We're, everybody that I know is going to go that way.
Let me ask you something, man, and it's kind of personal. Have you experienced any alcoholism or in your family, of any family members? And you don't have to say any names. Just have you experienced anybody, or not necessarily in your family, but close friends that you've gone, man, dude,
have you
get it
witnessed
together, man.
witnessed
Why
it
can't-
firsthand?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like me, I had all of my family on my mom's side, big drinkers. But they held jobs. They didn't never get no DWIs. And they would go to work, but they would drink all weekend long. Didn't drive, didn't do anything illegal, but they just drank. They would never get out of hand, but they did die of cirrhosis of the liver. They had those, where they were big drinkers. They weren't, no fight. You know what I'm saying? Did you ever experience that in your family or close friends or anything like that? Where you saw
Not necessarily
problems?
family, but sure, lots of friends. Of course,
Lots of friends,
as a
really?
young person, man, that's until you reach the age 21, it's all taboo, right? So you want to go to the pasture party where you can get drinks and things like that. And that was normal kind of country kids growing up.
Sure.
And we've all you probably couldn't pick up, if you put 100 people in a room and threw a rock, you're going to hit somebody who's had a problem.
Yeah.
Right? At this point, at this day and age.
Shit, you could throw a crap load of rocks and hit a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you've seen it. Just about everybody has seen this kind of stuff firsthand, whether it's narcotics or alcohol or whatever it is, right?
Well, because also too, when I was telling, I don't know if I told you the story, but I was telling a story, Jay, that when I went to rehab, the very first rehab that I went to was like a golf course. What do they call that? Like a country club. It was a rehab that we actually paid for. My wife paid for it through her job. Southeast Memorial on Gessner up in Houston. And dude, that was like a country club. I remember going there, man, and they had great food. My room was awesome. I was there with some high-end lawyers of a Texans football player, I was across the hall from this high class call girl. I don't know, because she would give me cigarettes, cartons of cigarettes, man. You know what I mean? But the thing is, dude, no one's immune to this thing, man. I mean,
No.
teachers, lawyers, police officers, you know what I'm saying? This is a disease that covered is what do they say? It doesn't discriminate, man. It does
No,
not
not at
discriminate,
all.
And but one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, what drugs are you seeing out in the street today, man? Ronnie, he's part of our podcast. He's taking a break right now because of school, but he comes from, where does he come? Over there where there's a big heroin. Baltimore. You hear about the epidemic over there in Baltimore at one time. What have you seen here in your end where you patrolled and investigated at? What drugs have you experienced with?
And we were talking about this a little bit before we got started,
Uh-huh.
and we were talking about the crack era, late 80s through most of the 90s.
Oh, yeah,
And I think the thing now, and it's actually one of the things we were talking about, was it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And I would say this, based on my experience, that it is an absolute wash in methamphetamines.
Oh, wow.
It used to be crack cocaine or cocaine, and yes, it's a bad drug, but I would say, in my personal opinion, I'm not a doctor, but just from what I've seen, methamphetamines is many, many powers stronger than that.
Mhm.
I think it's ruining people in other ways than what we saw that many years ago.
What do you mean? Say that again. What's worse than the what?
I think health-wise, it does a whole lot worse.
Did you say methamphetamines versus meth? Is that two different drugs?
No, just meth versus, back in the 80s, early 90s, when people were smoking crack.
Right.
It's a different health effect. When you see somebody that's strung out on that, it's so obvious, right?
Mhm.
They just look like, a lot of times
Death.
walking death. It's
Yeah.
terrible. And it's ruining good folks.
Mhm.
Well,
have you seen the stuff? I mean, not seen, but have you heard of the stuff they put in that, man? I mean, is it like the movie? What's it called? That movie? What's that movie? The famous thing on Netflix?
Narcos?
No. It's that famous movie with a lawyer to spring off. Anyway, I hate to mess you up on your thing, but the stuff that they're putting in meth, man, it's a bunch of chemicals and stuff. Is what I hear. I mean, they have labs that blow up. Right? People get burnt and the labs blow up from all the chemicals. They wear these goggles.
Oh, you're talking about Breaking Bad?
Breaking Bad, yeah. Well, I mean, I learned a lot from Breaking Bad. I've never cooked meth, but but it's true. I mean, have you ever seen a meth lab before? Have you busted a meth lab?
Yeah, there used to be far and few between. If you look up the statistics on that now, it is an absolute epidemic. And I'll say, let me back up and say this. I've said for years that I used to say this: if you cut the devil's throat, it would bleed cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely changed now.
Really,
it's the new drug meth, right? And it's ruining people in different ways, I think, from a health perspective. And I would say that because of us being 8 hours from the border, what we're seeing now is it's just a wash. What you used to see in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was $100, $150 a gram for meth. Now you're getting kilos for $3,000.
Shit,
it's insane. And so I would say that that's our worst problem right here. And I don't know that it's going to get any better, or it's not getting any better. I think it's actually getting worse.
You think that's a US wide, Texas wide, Missouri wide, or all of the above?
Probably all of the above. I don't think there's a spot that it doesn't touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Have you had any experience with people making meth in a car? I've heard that people in cars.
They call it a rolling meth lab back in the day.
Really?
You go to training and stuff, because you see cops that pop the trunk and they look at it and they fall out, right? From anhydrous ammonia,
really?
And all the stuff that they cooked it with back then, or red phosphorus and that kind of stuff. But the ones that I dealt with, were far and few between back then. But we'd have to call DPS, and they'd come out with a hazmat team. And a lot of this stuff is getting poured down sinks in hotel rooms, the chemicals that are being used. So it creates a major problem.
So there's something, let me ask you this. The bandidos used to push methamphetamines back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. Is this the same drug, or is it different? Do you know what I'm talking about? Back then, I remember, because it was cocaine, and then there was the bikers. They pushed a lot of meth.
Yeah.
But is it the same stuff or different?
So the 80s speed
Uh-huh.
versus today's
Speed. That's what they right.
crystal or ice or glass or whatever whatever the street name is we want to call it,
Uh-huh.
is two totally different ways.
Is
of
it
cooking
really?
things. Yeah.
Oh, in which way? What do you mean?
And the other thing that I'll say this too, when it first came out, started getting more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, crack cocaine was an antisocial drug, right? Oh, I got to smoke crack. So you had to be with people who did that. It was not a sociable thing. But then when meth started getting bad or glass started getting bad, you started seeing people doing it in clubs and smoking it off aluminum in the bathrooms and things like that. And it wasn't an antisocial thing. They didn't look upon you as dirty or anything at the time until it got so bad that you were that walking death description that we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's been a number of years since I went through the school. They teach you how to cook it and all that kind of stuff. But it's so I don't remember what all the differences are in the cook methodology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's bunches of different ways of doing that. And they from a national level, they've tried all kind of things. Of you can't even buy Sudafed anymore. It's locked up behind the counter, right? And so all of the parts and pieces of that is used in that cook. But I think that one of our biggest problems is we're only 8 hours from the Mexican border.
Yeah.
And we're getting suicide loads regularly, right? Where they throw 100 pounds in the back seat and just drive.
Yeah.
Really?
It's
so do you think that the borders are not being secured correctly, or what do you think the problem is there?
So much at I think just a lot, right? You think a lot. Yeah, I mean, if you try to smuggle, let's say 50 people and 49 of them are going to get caught, then I guess the risk to reward.
Yeah, well, our borders have always been porous, right? We've never actually had a access control, right?
Right.
We got some crossing points and stuff, but okay, I'm not going to cross there. I'm going to go down the road where there's not cops, right? Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a short run to Houston, Texas, and Houston is the hub for a whole bunch of things: human trafficking.
Yeah,
they're dumping. They got what they call super labs in some of the border towns over there, or on into Mexico. And when I say super lab, if we start a meth lab sitting here today, we might make an ounce by tomorrow. They're cooking 50 to 100 pounds at a time.
yeah.
Oh wow. And they're bringing it across, and they're just finding people that need the money that would take the risk.
Yeah, you can
bring
see it.
across,
You can see it when you catch somebody with some. You can tell if it's a home cooked deal, internals, what we call it, or if it's something that came from a real lab, right?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, besides, okay, we know there's a methamphetamine problem. What about that fentanyl that they're talking
Yeah,
about?
somebody had a question. Have you
Okay.
noticed the problem with fentanyl in Brazoria County?
Breaking Bad.
So we all watch the local newspaper, local news, Houston, Harris County, all the the Tri-County area, and so you're seeing these fatalities or these deaths, these overdoses that are taking place. And one's too many, let me say it that way. But we're not seeing it like you would see in Denver, Colorado, Los Angeles, California. We talked a little bit about this before we started, but that doesn't mean it's not coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so those same people that are shipping the other stuff are bringing this over here, and they're selling these kids, what they think is a Xanax or something. But it's fentanyl to the degree that there's no way you could have survived it. And I would not hope that someone knew that was the case before they handed this to some 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, knowing how potent that was.
So what is fentanyl? What is that? Is that a cutting agent or something? What is it?
So think of morphine, right?
Okay.
From a pain management, you're on hospice, those kind of things, or if you got some pain management type situation, they used to have them in patches.
Okay.
And you put a patch and do all that, but they've from Asia to Mexico to Texas is kind of the route that and I don't work at that level, but when you're looking at that and reading about all these things, that's kind of what the route is, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're right here at the tip of the spear coming out of Mexico,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. But what I guess my question was fentanyl. What is it? Is that a drug or is that a cutting? Because I heard somebody say, well, their stuff was laced with fentanyl. Right? Are they using this fentanyl to cut heroin with?
I think he was saying it was originally a pain medication,
Yeah,
right?
synthetic painkiller.
Yeah.
It's extremely strong, right? They say that enough on the tip of a pin,
right,
depending, may be enough to do. Yeah.
So you think about how strong morphine is. They're saying like it's up here,
Right.
you know,
Oh,
which
okay.
which
Right.
is
Right.
insane to think just morphine in general is a strong pain medication.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
am I wrong? I
And from what I've read, the fentanyl was so if you get on morphine, like if they have to put you on morphine for a surgery or something like that, you have these after effects for a full day. You feel all drugged out, and the recovery time is longer. The fentanyl is much cleaner than that, from what I've read, and so they'll manage that pain for you through that surgery and afterwards. But you don't have that I'm drugged for 48 hours.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Wow. Hey, well, let me I want to know. This is something I want to know. And I've been meaning to ask you this, man, is so what made you get into law enforcement? This is a two part question. One, what made you get into law enforcement? Number two is in studying or investigating narcotics. What made you want to one and then the other, or vice versa, whichever one you want to start with? Because from what you're from your words is, and you're saying that you're a little rowdy when you're a younger kid. You out there, playing out there in the country, right? Like most country boys, getting all kinds of trouble and blah blah blah. And so tell us about that. What kept you, even though you mentioned that you did a couple of things, you got a little risk and stuff like that and doing some crazy little things, but what kept you going further? Or if you ever thought about doing anything like as far as some people don't just call marijuana that it's not a drug. We know it is, right? But what was your thought about that when you were a younger guy? And do you understand my question? Do you mind?
Sure.
Yeah. Tell us about that, man. And what made you turn around or whatever, if there was a turnaround point?
It would have been a real easy thing to go completely left field, right? It's wherever you want to turn.
Sure.
And a big part of my raising was by my grandparents, and they were already, at the time you start having the memories of all that, they were already kind of elderly. But it was a daily thing that we talked about. Don't use drugs, don't do this, and just, be a good man, do all that right coaching. And you kind of listen to that stuff, but you're a young person, right? So you're going to go out and do dumb shit anyway.
Yeah.
and
you blow some shit up.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me was I was always fearful I didn't want to humiliate my grandparents.
Wow.
And I knew that was real important to my grandfather specifically. And so fast forward a few years, and I've avoided some of those humiliating choices, right? And actually, my brother was a police officer, got hurt in football real bad, and came out and said, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the police academy up in Dallas." And we were all like, "What? Why would you do that?"
Yeah.
And so fast forward, he's a local police officer and got into the narcotics side of it. And it was 10, 11 o'clock at night one night. He goes, "Hey, come ride with me. I got to go do something, blah, blah, blah." So we get in the car, and I'm like, this is going to be weird. I've never done this before. And so we ended up in some things and doing things out kind of in the street level stuff with some patrolmen, stuff like that. And as I'm watching all this take place, that's kind of the turning where I said, okay, I know what I want to be when I grow up, if that makes sense.
But was it like an excitement type of thing? Was it some adrenaline that something happened that was kind of exciting to you?
It's a blend. Was it a blend? It's you're doing something that is, positive, I'll call it, for somebody.
Right.
And is this really a job? Is this work?
Yeah.
It's kind of how you looked at that. And, they say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
And I've been on job interviews. People go, "Man, you worked narcotics." And the whole interview changed, right? Well, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like, but
you went from being the interview to the interviewee, or vice versa.
And so the answer to that is it never felt like work. I mean, you get up in the morning, you can't get your shoes on fast enough. You go to bed at 2:00 in the morning, and alarm goes back off about 9 or so. And in the narcotics world, you kind of keep that schedule, right? And so my schedule was a noon to 8 back then. And so I didn't ever really set an alarm, but my eyes opened it up. I'm like, oh,
but dude,
start checking your phone and seeing who's telling you who's doing what.
Wow, yeah. But dude, that must be also, I mean, I'm sure it's exciting and all that stuff, but did you ever get into a position to where you're a little worried about, yourself? Or because, I mean, you're dealing with in narcotics, man, you're dealing with a lot of, not so nice people. You know what I mean? A lot. There's only
one real time where it became real at that point. And so when I got out of full-time narcotics investigations, the first time was in 2005, and I was in another state and got a phone call from Pensacola, Florida, DEA, a female. And she identified herself and explained to me why she was calling me. She said, well, where are you? And I was out of state doing some stuff. And she goes, well, I'm calling you because I'm concerned. And we're investigating a guy. And let me back up a little bit. We'd done about a 3-year operation gathering intelligence on a guy that was bringing a lot of drugs in. And we never got him. So we took everything we had when I was getting out full time to DEA. And they looked through it. Yeah, we look into it. There's not enough really here to put a budget to it, to put a case number to it, and really invest some resources. And so this lady out of Pensacola calls and says, I'm looking through your case files, and let me tell you why I'm calling you, because the guy you were investigating had hired a private investigator to follow you around. He's got pictures of you, your informant, your parents' house, your house, you in your yard, all these things. And so what does that lead you to believe, right? Why do you need to do all that and have all this intelligence? And we were looking at him for 4 or 5, maybe 10 kilos a month. And when he finally went to federal prison, it was a conspiracy case on 900 a month.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a significant amount of drugs, right? And it wasn't just Texas, they were hitting other states and stuff like that. So that really kind of put some things in perspective, because the majority of my career has been at a street level where you're not dealing with major loads of narcotics and things like that. That's a different group of folks that were doing that. And so we work with informants and do street level buys and things like that. So when you have that kind of thing happen, you really look back and go,
oh, wow,
man, I could not be here today because of my job, right?
Right. That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's kind of chilling. We actually did one of the Feeder Fridays that you came to one time. We did it I was invited through a friend of ours. We did a retirement for a DEA agent in Houston. And it was hush hush too. We couldn't, we couldn't do any, we took some pictures, but we had to cover the faces of everybody there, right? And but we were honored, man. What do you mean? You went my Feeder Fridays to go do this? He was retiring. And dude, I was like, so we went, and I even took this taquero with me, the guy that does nothing but talk. I said, I need an experienced guy, man, with me, right? So I took him with us, and we did it, man. And boy, man, it was the stories, dude, that we were, talking about this dude. He infiltrated, if that's the word. Into, he went into the mouth of the lion, as they say, right, dude? And he was like involved with these big guys, man. And you're sitting there listening to his stories, and these other DEA agents that were still active. He was retiring that day. Everybody's just like, yeah, and then we thought that you were gonna die, man, and we're gonna blah blah blah. And we're like, holy shit, it's I can imagine, man, that having to live the job, man, and when you were saying that, dude, it's kind of like a little chilling, man.
I've run into some people that did time on my cases. Talked to them at Walmart. And
you've seen people after you've locked them up. You've seen them like at the store,
and we've stood and had conversations, and I would say more than half come over and give you a hug.
So you get a lot of thank yous.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, here's the thing. They call it the game, right? It's really not somebody's life.
Yeah,
but it's called the game.
It's not personal,
right? We know what all that means, right?
Right.
But when you're in the game and you're ugly and you're mean and all those things, that's not what happens later on, right? Life goes on. These people are getting out of prison, and they're not going to forget how you treated them. But I always thought of it this way, and maybe this is why I had what I would call some pretty significant success, is whether it was an informant, a drug addict, a drug dealer, still a human being. And I treated them like that. I talked to them with a little bit of respect. It goes a long ways. And that always meant something to me. Yeah. So, there was a time in my career where I had 139 contracted informants. Now, they weren't all active, but 10 or 15 of them were active on a daily basis, right? So your phone's ringing up constantly. You're the marriage counselor, you're the drug counselor, you're everything.
Yeah.
Or you got to go pick them up at 2:00 in the morning because X happened and they're on the side of the highway somewhere. And
I don't mean to laugh. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but you do all these things, and it becomes a normal part of life.
So are you doing these things because you want to keep these guys active? Or is that part of the job of having the informants? And then I like to start taking some. Do we have any questions, by the way?
Oh, yeah, but
Can we? Okay,
we're
keep
good
this up. Yeah, no,
conversation.
no,
Go
no.
ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, but yeah. So does that become? Do you have to care for these and just to like you can keep them on the job, or what happens? I mean, or do you get to where you, not feelings, but do you like become friends to where you start kind of caring for these people, or what is it?
You
Which
actually
one
go
is
to
it?
training and you learn how to cultivate the relationship.
Okay.
But I think if you are already, kind of give a damn about human beings,
Right.
that's
Right.
kind of a natural thing.
It's a natural thing.
And
Right.
you're going to treat people with a little bit of respect and some caring. It goes a long ways. And I had several informants that worked with me all of that time, and they may go dormant for 6 months. Hey, I hadn't heard from old girl or whatever. Let me check on her. Oh, I'm good. I'm working. Blah 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 blah. I'll holler at you, and life goes on.
Mhm.
But you always had somebody that was active, so you knew what was going on. But I attribute a lot of those successes to simply just treating people with a little bit of respect,
Mhm.
treating them like people.
So do you think that came from your upbringing from your grandfather and your grandmother with the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The old school upbringing, dude, because I see that in you, man. I
My
see
my
that.
grandparents were old coon asses,
Uh-huh.
and so there's a culture with that, right? And it was that what do we call ourselves? Generation X, right? We
Mhm.
held the door. You
Mhm.
said yes, ma'am. All those great
Yeah,
normal
yeah, yeah.
things that you would think of.
Open the door.
Everything that's
do
gone.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All these things that are gone, man.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But that was a natural thing, is
Uh-huh.
just to be nice to somebody, even when you didn't have to. It's just if that was the way you were raised and the way you want to behave with people. And then I realized one day, man, that's probably a whole lot of why somebody would even want to talk to me, right?
Mhm.
And give me information and work with me. And some of them, by the time you get up, you got 4 missed calls. Hey, what are we doing today? And you go pick them up
Right.
and start the hunt, right?
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So, man, is there, Jay? I didn't mean to call it. I would. So, is there a time where you could tell us a story about somebody you've seen at their worst, and maybe you've seen them just shine through, and now there's something or somebody. Not to say that they weren't, but now they become someone.
So let me respond first. I'll predicate with this. A minute ago, I told y'all that if you cut the devil's throat, it would bleed either cocaine or methamphetamines, and I believe that. I think there's a whole lot of people in the world, and a lot of them are sitting in prison right now that are good and great people that just made some bad decisions. That don't make it. You don't crucify them people the rest of their lives. They made a decision. They paid the
Mhm.
piper. Don't make me any better than them, or vice versa, right? And so I've watched over my career where people have absolutely, it's destroyed families, right? And where siblings are stealing from parents and just whatever it takes, right?
Mhm.
They're not
Mhm.
thinking, their mind's not there. And when you're sneaking in there and stealing cash from your mom, I think that's bottom of the barrel type stuff, right? Because that's not what that person would do if it wasn't for this stuff that's been introduced to them.
Yeah.
So not one comes to mind. I've worked with some folks that didn't make it, that
Mhm.
died later on. And I think about those people from time to time and think about what could have been done different that may have changed that trajectory.
Mm.
And so you often think about that. And what could I have done different? Some of them were informants, right? You get a call, hey, they're over in a neighboring city, found in Motel 6 or something that didn't make it.
Mhm.
And you think, man, I had a missed call from them or whatever, and golly, I wasn't able to get their call or something. So a lot of that you still think about. But again, it's everybody's a human being, and I think that we whether you're a police officer, whether you're a recovering addict or whatever you are, a judge, whatever it is, we owe that humanity, right? And like I said, there's some really good people that are now ex-convicts or still sitting there today that just made some damn bad decisions, right?
Mm.
Don't make them a horrible person for the remainder of their life.
Right.
I've got some good friends that have done time, over something or another, whether that been drugs or some kind of significant assault or something, that I still love them today, whether they went to prison or not.
Right.
And I have a buddy of mine, a guy that he's younger than me, that we grew up together from the same neighborhood. He's an officer here in town, and then there was this kid that was pushing a ton of coke. You know what I mean? Back in the day, and he did some time. He got busted, and when he must have done about, I don't know, 10 or 12 years or so, right? This is a pretty good amount of time. So he gets out. And my cop friend and this guy, they're in the same club. They're in the same motorcycle club, and he just totally, he changed his life. He's all tatted up and he's big. You can tell he did some time, because I mean he got buff, man. You know what I mean? He was a skinny kid when he went in, but and it always amazed me, man. I'm like, hey, he doesn't think any less of him. You know what I mean? And they're in the same motorcycle club, or they were. This was about 10 or 8 years ago. But I thought it was just really cool that he would be, even though he's an officer, he doesn't, he takes pictures, they take pictures, or they did, on social media and all this stuff. And I just thought that was really, really cool that he didn't think he was any better than him because he had made a bad choice. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, he made those choices, right? And it was really, really cool.
We have a question. It says, have you had repeated offenders that grew close and wanted to get them into rehab or drug court? Like you see, oh, there's OP again. He's doing that,
So drug court wasn't around back then.
Okay.
Or if it was starting then, when I was still doing this full time, it wasn't something that we had as, hey, let me go call Judge so-and-so or whatever that may be. So that wasn't an alternative that we could have reached out and used as a tool. I think it's absolutely wonderful that that's going on right here locally. And I wish it had been going on back then, because I can think back to a lot of folks that would have benefited from something like that. There's tons of those guys and gals that if we'd had some kind of tool like that, we could have done a lot for them.
It's crazy because we went through a similar program, but different. Because I went through the Veterans Court program, the Veteran Treatment Court program, and Ricky went through the drug.
Yeah. It was a I don't remember what program it was, but it was through the judge Pat Sebesta, which
drug court.
Yeah, drug court.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was a Mhm.
So I it comes to I don't know where I was going with that, but I kind of went sideways. But let's say to remember that police officers are human. And have you throughout the recent years, has there come a point where you're just like, maybe I should change professions, maybe I should do something different?
So that leads me back to the thought of this is, what is it that we can do different, either as a local group or state or country or something like that? Because what we're doing, if we just take away drug court, take away, Freedom House, all these other tools that we have right now, and we just said, we're going to enforce the law. If you're caught with drugs, we're going to put you in prison, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff that goes with it. And if you're out here selling drugs, that's probably the route for you, right? And before we got started, one of my comments was this, is I think the day that we said we're announcing this war on drugs, we lost as soon as the words come out of their mouth. It's not something that, we got this battle. Okay, we won this war on drugs. At what point do you say you've won that? Because it's not getting better, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And, there's lots of other influencers like a porous border, it's not really secure, and all those great things where we're just getting more and flooded with these things, getting cheaper. And then obviously the money that goes along with dealing drugs, right? I can go down here and work at, whatever, and go make $12-15 an hour, or go to work in the plant and grind it out every day. Or I can go take this load from Laredo to Houston and there's $20,000. I do that 3 times a month. I'm good. It's a cultural thing too, right? So it depends on how you're raised. It depends on what you've been exposed to. And I've got lots of opinions around stuff we ought to figure out there's enough smart people in the world today. I would love to see a governor or something saying, hey, I'm taking all these smart people and I'm going to put them in a room, the smartest ones I can find, and we're going to, don't come out. We're going to feed you every day until we get this figured out.
Yeah, but see, there's a difference between book smart, street smart, common sense smart.
You got to blend them all together.
Hey, but listen, here's the deal though. A lot of people blame they say a lot of people say, well, there wouldn't be any supply if there wasn't any demand. What do you think about that? I mean, do you think that that let me see, hitting the demand here locally is going to slow the drugs coming in from Mexico? What's your opinion on that? Like you say, say treatment here in Brazil, we're in Brazoria County, Houston, United States takes a bigger approach on treatment. You know what I mean? Treatment on drug abuse and programs for drug addiction and all that stuff. What is your look into that or your thoughts about that? And if you cut the demand, it will cut the supply. You know what I'm saying? Because they've talked about that before in different platforms. You cut off the supply or you cut off the demand and the supply slows down. Or is the demand getting stronger for that? Because we talked about the methamphetamines that we've seen, that it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Is that demand, is that supply coming in because the demand is so great here because that drug is so addicted?
Yeah, so you
what do
can
you think
Google
on
it
that?
and you can look that the United States is the biggest consumer of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got, different places in Asia that are shipping over all the parts and pieces to these super labs and getting it into the backside of Mexico and bringing it in so they can cook it. And when they finish cooking it, the ultimate goal is get it to the United States, whatever big city they can get it to, right? And Houston's right here.
Yeah.
San Antonio's right down the road. Austin's right down the road. And there's enough consumers there that, we're making people multi-millionaires over our addictions. I don't know what the answer is to that as far as how do we curb the desire to want to go do this or the addiction to want to go do this. Like I said, I think you got to get a blend of lots of smart folks, whether it be street smarts, former addicts, judges, cops, lawyers, whoever, and dump them in somewhere and say, let's do something.
Right.
Because what's the definition?
Everybody
of
does a
insanity?
little bit of something. Yeah, doing something over and over and expecting different results.
Yeah. In fact, the results aren't getting any better. Right?
They're right. You're right.
But as much investment as we make into going and catching people doing this, we should make equal, if not more, into let's fix the people that are the end consumer are now addicted to this.
Mm-hmm. But see, a lot of the only thing is, man, a lot of people that don't understand addiction, it's like, well, just let them die. You know what I mean? Have you heard that before? It's just like, you know what? They're going to end up in Mexico. They had this thing about one of the generals back when I was watching this interview that they interviewed this general from Mexico. It's like, what do y'all do about drug addiction here? Like, we just let them die. You know what I mean? They just the problem takes care of itself. You know what I mean? There in Mexico. You know what I mean?
But see, I think that's where platforms like this, Ricky, come into play, where we let people know that addiction is real, and it's everyday people who make mistakes but can come back from it.
Yeah, but you know what, Raul, and this is the thing, Jay, that we don't see. Here's the thing, and here's the problem that I see. And tell me if I'm wrong, man. See, tell me if y'all disagree with this. But dude, addiction isn't just drugs.
Right.
See, this is where we think that it's alcohol and drugs, man. You know what, dude? I'm addicted. Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. Tell us about that, man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you. I want to hear what you just pointed out there. In fact, go ahead. You got tell me about that dip.
Yeah, so
in
July 1997, I can tell you the month and the year. I used to smoke cigarettes and walked outside to go smoke a cigarette. And I was like, yeah, it's nasty. It's hot. I threw it in the trash. About 24 hours later, I guess I am addicted to smoking cigarettes. I'm going to run down to the store and get a can of Skull. I can fix that. That's nothing. And however many years that's going to go now, I'm holding this, sitting over here with y'all.
Right. And you check this out, man. I'm going to tell you, even though when I got off drugs in 2011, right, that was when my recovery date started. I was smoking cigarettes, and I said, you know what? I'm going to stop smoking because I wanted to get healthier, right? And I started to vape. Check this shit out, man. I started to vape because I was gonna vape, and then I was gonna get off of that. So they used to sell these cigarettes electric cigarettes that you can buy them at Walgreens, and I was buying those. I don't remember what I was paying for them, but and then these pins came up. Not a pin, but these little electric things that you put juice in it to vape. Those came out, man. Those were expensive. They were like 80 or 100 and something bucks, right? And I bought that. And check this out, man. I got addicted to those because let me tell you how. I was going to sleep one time and my pin ran out of juice, my vapor. And I was like, dude, you know what I mean? and I was just like, I was losing it. So you know what I did the next freaking day, dude? Because I wasn't going to run out again, dude. I went and bought a freaking case of juice, bought an extra battery for the vapor, right? And then you know what I did? I said, the following week, man, I spent like $180 on all this stuff. And then the following week, you know what I said? I'm going to quit. You know what I did? I took that vapor and I shorted it out. I threw it in the bless you. I threw it in the toilet and shorted it out. I said, okay, I'm done. You know what I did that freaking night? I went and bought another one. Dude, I did this like 4 times. I promise you. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with me, man? So, dude, addiction isn't everything. I mean, you've got housewives, man, that are addicted to chocolate, to sugar. I mean, somebody was talking the other day.
Companies that does those electric vape deals just paid out like $80 million because they were advertising to young people. And that's against some kind of federal law, I guess.
Well, I know, like you could see that when you walk into stores now, they got like all kinds of fruity ass flavors and stuff like that. That has to be pointed towards the younger generation.
Dude, it's amazing.
Back in the 80s or whenever it was, they outlawed being able to advertise cigarettes on TV and that kind of stuff. But hell, I remember getting candy cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Talking about cigarettes, dude, and I got in big trouble, man. You remember those little firecrackers you could put in the cigarette?
Oh yeah.
You remember those? Dude, I put one in my dad's, man. I got my ass whooped.
I believe it.
It's like a little piece of wood, right? You put it. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
And then have you seen them, Raul?
When it gets to it pops.
And it pops, man. I put that one in my dad's, man, and dude, I got my ass whooped. But anyway, you were saying this in questions, right?
No, we had a Chris. Chris said when I quit drinking, when I quit dipping after 36 years, I ended up in the hospital with withdrawals. He goes, it was easier for me to quit drinking than dipping.
Wow.
Really?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's I've talked to several people. In fact, I got a family member that quit about a year ago. And his wife said, dude, that first 6 months, I would have went and bought it for him because of his behavior and his agitation and all. I mean, it's bad stuff. And you know, I'm kicking 50 years old here real quick. So this has got to go away.
Yeah.
It's going to be brutal. But
man. But it's got to be.
You gotta do it, man.
Exactly,
You gotta do
man.
it.
I was taught something one time. I went to this leadership conference where you do some development and learn to manage conversations and different weird stuff. But they taught us that you know, before you get ready to do something, if you're not going to half-ass it, right, then you make a personal declaration and you say that out loud in the mirror or whatever you're going to do.
Right.
But you make it and you call it that. It's a declaration. I'm not doing this anymore. When the time comes, and my goal is before 50, is and I'm going to stand right there and make that declaration.
You're going to say it out loud somewhere
Absolutely.
where people, and then whoever hears you is going to hold you accountable, man. Right? That's the
we
part,
will.
man.
Call us.
Right, man. You know, and that makes sense, dude. Because I'm going to tell you something, man. When I first got out and got back to work and reopened my shop, I told Raul, dude, that I was ashamed of being a recovering addict. I identified as a recovering alcoholic. I didn't want to be associated. I didn't want people to know that I was recovering from drugs, man. I was like, for some reason, you know, a society, I noticed that society accepted more the addiction to, or the recovery from alcohol, like AA. They didn't look down too much on them because a lot of high profile people or whatever, judges and politicians and all that, you know, they'd go to AA and they had problems with alcohol and all that kind of shit. But drug addicts were always looked down differently. And they do, you know, AA and NA, they're rivals, right? You
Oh, I
do?
didn't-
You,
I didn't-
oh
I
yeah.
didn't
Oh
know
yeah,
that.
dude. My sponsor, man, it was like, no, they don't like, we don't, I got nothing against nobody.
Like cops and firefighters.
Yeah,
Okay.
something like that. Oh yeah, man. It's like, you know what? They're from the other fellowship. You know what I mean?
Some of the best
The old
boxing.
timers, man, huh?
Some of the best boxing I've seen was the Guns and Hoses?
Well, Battle of the Badges.
Battle of the
Over in
Badges.
Galveston.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it's firefighters versus police officers.
Oh, that one is Guns and Hoses.
Okay, Guns and
Yeah.
Hoses. Yeah.
Guns and
Yeah, but you know
Hoses.
what? Firefighters all day, they got a gym, they got all those amenities, and they're hanging out and playing Netflix and
They sleep all day,
Nintendo.
man. They sleep all night. Yeah.
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
if cops have a ride along,
Uh-huh.
what do firefighters do? Sleep over?
You know,
Yeah, I know,
that
right?
cracks me up because that shows like we have the rivalry, excuse me, is like Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. We almost forgot the Air Force because
Sheriff Force.
yeah. So we have that rivalry against each other. But if anybody from the outside tries to come in and talk about one of the other branches and you got no affiliation, then we'll all come after you.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Hey, let's take some questions, man. I see a lot of questions coming up.
Well,
What do we
Chris,
got?
Chris
Yeah.
said, and his teeth fell out. So
Yeah.
if that don't give you more motivation,
His tooth fell out. Is that what he said?
his teeth fell out.
His teeth or tooth?
Teeth.
Huh.
He did 36 years of dipping,
Uh-huh.
and his teeth fell out. So if that
Well, he
don't
got
push
out
you-
light, dude. But I'm going to tell you, dipping is you're not there. You're also, cancer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you that's on the bad side. Give us some more questions, man.
And there was another statement that said I quit smoking on my 52nd birthday.
That was that's Eduardo, my
Thursday.
cousin. That's my cousin
Hey,
Eduardo. Me and him did some
Congrats,
And Ardo and
kid.
I, we did some
Yeah.
great things together.
Yeah.
Jenny's got a lot of things to say. Read some of the stuff that Jenny has said.
Jenny said that recovery court saved her life.
She did, and she's still in that, man. She's
Yeah.
actively in that. She is very. She's one of the ones that loves Pat Sebesta. And tell us about you. You actually know. He actually knows him personally, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's had some dealings with him. Tell us about it. I think the judge might even be watching too. He said he was.
He's a good man.
He's a great guy, man. Tell us about your stories with him, man.
So I got custody of my son. We were asking about personal issues, right? Earlier. So my oldest son, who's 11 Bravo now,
Yeah.
been in 11 years, and
Congratulations to him. Thank you for
All
your
right.
service.
absolutely. And so there were some problems way back in the day with his mother, and anyway, his story wasn't going right.
Right.
So I filed for custody. We ended up in Judge Sebesta's court.
Mm-hmm.
About 3.5 days of trial,
Mhm.
and man, you're talking about stress.
Really?
And at the end of it, the judge comes out and he explains to you, he's first talking to me and you stand up, listen, and really kind of tore you up, right? And I thought, man, we just lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit down, his mother stands up, gives her the what for as well, right? And ultimately got custody of my son. It was a great thing. And it's there's some other history there. He was a teacher at one point,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I haven't heard anybody, even yourself, being put in jail with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has come back and said, "Oh, that guy's no good. He's good people."
He is really good people.
We were
Really
talking
good
before we
people.
got started about all the stuff that he's involved with and helping folks. And he don't get paid for that.
Right.
He's not doing that for money.
Right.
He's doing that because he's good people. Right?
Absolutely. Dude.
Saving
Yeah,
lives,
man.
man.
He's hey man, he'll on the drug court has his own website, man. And there, he'll put deals like, what got you clean, man? What got you clean today? What has kept you clean? Hey guys, work your recovery. It's Christmas time. Okay. Don't get don't get caught up in the bullshit. And they don't say it like that, right? But that's the way I interpret it. Don't get caught up in this. Don't get caught up in your feelings. Hey everybody, how did you get through the holidays? You know what I mean? And he just keeps us accountable, dude. And and it's amazing.
You need to have him on.
Huh?
You need to have him on.
He's gonna come on. Yeah, we're gonna invite him on, man. Absolutely. Is he there?
He said, "Looking good, guys."
All right. That's all right. That's my judge.
And
Yeah, everybody knows,
this
man.
is Astros orange.
That's right,
Somebody
man.
asked if it was county orange because the police officer was here. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Let me see them slip on.
Let me see that. Yeah,
Don't look at my
right
shoes.
on, right? Yeah.
Oh, man.
But yeah, man, it's like, hey, work your recovery, man. You know, it's Thanksgiving. You know, even though you're not spending it with family, you're spending it with someone. You know, all that kind of stuff. It all during the year, man, and it's an amazing thing. And the more and more I was seeing that, with the more time I was getting clean, man, Jay, I was like, you know, I mean, early on, I guess 3 years into getting clean, I found a new respect for him, and I started seeing him in a different light as I started to think more clearly. And really appreciate, you know, that looking back and really appreciating him kicking off my recovery, man, because he, you know, really with between him, Eugene, and the program, man, you know, my kids have me back and I have them. You know, I had lost my kids for a little while, and I remember that it was a very, very hard thing for me. You know, in fact, I owe my recovery to my children. They are what hurt me the most, man. Losing them for that amount of time, you know, and then being able to share in a group, in my group, whenever a newcomer comes in and they're like, yeah, I have to go see my kids in a you know, in a supervised place in Angleton, right? And then and they're sharing how they, you know, blah 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 blah. And I went through that. And then I like to share my experience, you know, about, yeah, me too. You know what, man? But just be patient, man. Be patient. All you got to do is stay clean and continue what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, man. And you're gonna get to this point. And I laugh about this. Ricky, my youngest, she still remembers. In fact, I was telling Ricky and Chrissy, dude, my recovery got to where I lost my children. I was in jail, went to rehab, lost them, and then I had to try to get them back to where I wake up one day, dude, and I'm going to work, and I'm like, it's summertime, and Ricky comes out, she's like, oh, I'm like, hey, didn't you come here? Like, how long you been here? She goes, let me see, Dad. School let out. She goes, 3 months. I said, you've been here for 3 months. You know, her mom and I were divorced. I'm like, when are you going home? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I laughed about it because, you know, we both started cracking up. I'm like, dude, this is what my recovery has given me, man. Isn't that amazing? You know, isn't that amazing? You know what I mean? For a judge to care enough about me to be dude, I saw the disappointment in his eyes. I saw the disappointment, man. You know, it's like it was you know, he could have just done his job and blah blah blah. But I saw the disappointment, and I remember that, man. I don't forget it. So all that, man, that I remember. So I share that in meetings, right? So it's like, hey, just hold on a minute, man. You'll get to the Ricky Cruz moment where that switch kicked on, man, and you're going, hey, to your kids, go home. You know what I mean? I didn't have them at one time, and now I've got them. You know what I mean? And I've got them whenever I want. They're back. They're mine. They're whatever. You know, I claim them. You know what I mean? And they're a pain in my ass today because, you know, I get to live. I get to be their father again, and that's the wonderful thing, man. I'm going to tell you something, and I'll say this right now, man. My respects to law enforcement, man. You're doing a great job, Jay. You know, and especially you, man. Like I said, when I first met you, and we talked a little bit with Tom. I remember Tom, man, and I know he's going through some stuff, but I remember talking to you and going, man, this guy actually cares. This guy actually cares, man. And we talked a little bit about my recovery. There was nothing but all. We were talking about, I just celebrated 11 years. Well, you didn't come. Did you come?
I was out of town.
You were out of town. But when Andre, he's like, yeah, man, I start going to Ricky Cruz's shop, man. He's got judges and politicians. He's got police officers. Who'd have known? You know what I mean? And I was like, dude, because I don't know, man. That's where God put me, man. And again, I'm not trying to make this into a spiritual program, right? But this Sunday for me, bro, it was like really, I really don't know how to think about it still, because I'm actually, man, I don't know if I told you guys that I'm getting more connected with my pastor. And
I'm here to tell you, Ricky, that I've followed you on social media for some time now. And some of the people that are involved with that, I know personally from many, many years ago, and they're great people. The work you're doing, and again, I don't want to make it a spiritual program either, but the work you're doing is God's work. What you're doing is more than what law enforcement can do. You know,
thanks, man. I
we have tools and stuff like this. Really important. I think, you know, before the program started, I got here about 30 minutes early, and we were sitting chatting. And one of the things that we talked about was, what can we do different? And really, it's just to take it back to the basics. We got the next generation that's coming up. We got to have those conversations early on, and otherwise, somebody else is going to have a conversation with them, right?
Right.
And put that, because they're going to have that choice in their life. They're going to reach a point. Most of them will, unless you're micromanaging, and how hard is that?
Right.
But they're going to reach a point somewhere where they got to make a decision.
Right.
I'm at so and so's party. I'm doing this, whatever it is. But that choice will be facing them at some point. And for me, it was, to this day, I can hear my grandfather telling me daily, preaching that to me.
But how do we bring that back, dude? Because we're losing that, man. We're losing that as more time goes by, man. We talked about what's going on in the military, right? And we're talking about how things have changed in the school. So many things are changing. How do we bring that back, man? You know what I mean? Do you bring that back?
I don't know if anyone's got the answer to that.
Right. I mean, but do you understand what I'm saying? Everything has changed, dude.
No, I agree.
It was a culture.
Even country music has changed.
Yeah. It was a culture that was imprinted on a lot of people from what we call the greatest generation. Generation's just about gone. And so somebody's got to grab hold of the reins here and say, and I'll back up and tell you this part. When I got custody of my son, he was distant. And it's a big change in his life, right? I'm going to live with dad now, and I don't have the same bedroom, same clothes, and there's a big change in his life. And even as a real young baby cop, rookie, whatever you want to call me, I knew that I had to change that. And so this applies the same principle. And so every day I was real strict on him, poor kid, but I knew that he had the opportunity to do well or not.
But he's grateful as hell right now, man.
Yeah. I'll tell you about a letter he wrote me from Afghanistan in a minute. But
oh wow.
But every day and every time it crossed my mind, I would just stop and say, "Hey, I love you." And it got to a point right now I can call him on the phone, and he'll be with he's a drill sergeant right now. I'm being out here with a bunch of recruits, right? But before he hangs up that phone, he'll say, "I love you." And that was an imprint that I started at 5 years old, because I didn't want him to be what I call a distant heart, right? Can't connect with people and that kind of stuff. And I was worried about that because of this. I'm ripping him out of his what he knows. Yeah. And I think that we have to, if you've got children of those ages that can grasp this concept, right? We start that talking now. And is it a silver bullet that's going to fix everything? No, but they know you love them. They know that this is a bad choice. So when that choice is presented to them, whether it be you can go make a bunch of money, or hey, let's have fun and do this, they're going to hear you in the back of their mind and go, That's not what my dad told me.
Dude, that's awesome, man. You say that about your son, and Robert, man, my son, same thing, man. And since he was little, and I got custody of him too when he was like 4 or 5 years old. And one thing about Robert, man, is that when I used to drop him off at school, he'd get out of the car and he'd come around and he'd give me a hug and a kiss every time I dropped him off, and his friends would be there, man. And he was never embarrassed. And I said, man, he's gonna get older. He's gonna, stop doing it. No, he kept doing it, man. He kept doing it, and he's still today. When he was, of course, he left the business. He went off to look for his happiness. We figured out that he didn't want to do the automotive thing anymore. And but even when he would leave every day, when he was with me for 10 years here in the business, backpack and hey, dad, I'm out. And boom, hug and a kiss, man. And always, and I was like, man, you know what? Was it? I don't know. Was it me that taught him that, or was it just him? Or I like to think that is just what my dad put on me. You know what I mean? My dad taught me a lot of bad shit, but he also taught me a lot of good shit. You know what I mean? My dad, and God rest his soul, I lost my dad in 14, but and I could say that my dad wasn't the best father, wasn't the best husband from what but he was a great person, man. He was a great person. But he had his own faults. He had his defects, like all of us. I resented for a while, that I didn't go to college. And I also resented that I remember getting, because, we came from Mexico, right? And he came and he worked really hard, both my mom and my dad. And I remember that when he opened up his shop, dude, after school, it wasn't no playing football, man. We had to go get off the bus, go home, eat, and then put on our shorts and a shirt because we had to go wash parts at the shop. right around the evening time, you could hear around, I don't know, 5:36 when it started getting a little dark, you could hear my friends out there playing football, fighting and arguing and all that kind of shit, right? And I'm over there scrubbing, man. I'm like, man, this sucks, man. But you know what, dude? All that helped me today. All that helped me today. And I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful for the old man, what he put in me. I went a little wrong, but we got it back on track, and here we are, right?
That's what it's about, man.
That's what it's about. They say it's not about the it's about the ending, or what is it? What do they say?
It's not about the start, it's about the ending.
It's about the ending. I think this is what they say. But listen, man, we ran out of time.
No.
All right.
One last comment about
Sure.
the stars like that.
Yeah.
One of the things I tell people that have whatever the failure is that, like that country song says, God bless that broken road. Because you wouldn't be sitting here doing this today and helping all these other people had you not had to go down that road.
Thank you for saying that, man. I appreciate it. And you know what, man? It's today. I appreciate that so much, man. And you know what, man? It's not. I'm the more time that's going by, man, the more I'm realizing that it's not about me anymore. In the beginning, I thought it was about me, but the more that time goes by, and not necessarily more clean time, but the more time that goes by, man, I'm realizing it's not about me, man. It's about helping someone else.
You're right. But at the same
what I mean?
time, I don't think you give yourself enough credit, because regardless of what you think, man, you're making changes in people's fucking lives, dude.
I'm just living my life,
even if
bro.
it's 1, 2, 3, you made a change in my life, and I told you that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
And that's what 3 and some change, 3 years and some change ago, I started this path. And it was, you were a big push to that. And even when I was probably in my darkest days recently, it was this guy who came and was like, hey, get your ass up, bro. It's
Divine intervention.
Yeah. And I'll never forget it. And I'm forever grateful, bro.
Well, thank you for saying that, man. I think
that.
the same about you. Hey, my friendships today, man. You know what I mean? I appreciate your friendship, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Really
We appreciate you coming on the show.
man. Absolutely. And with that,
show.
man, thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully you accept another invitation here in the near future. Come let us know how things are going in your life.
Yeah,
yeah. All right.
Hey, with that, you guys be sure to like, share, follow us on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. As always, this podcast will be available on all podcast platforms as of tomorrow morning. Again, Jay, thank you for coming on the show.
Right, we got applause.
Yes, sir.
All right. And with that being, what is our motto here, Mr. Engineer?
Hey, Ricky.
Yo.